Hi, I'm Allison Edgety, a pediatric sleep and wellness coach and a mom of two. I love to help parents find solutions. This is How Long Till Bedtime. Well, hey, Leah, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you about all things fall family photo related. I personally love getting fall photos every year, but I do find certain aspects of it to be a little bit stressful. And I know I have friends who don't get any fall photos because they don't think it's worth the stress. So we're going to talk about all of that. But before we dive in, can you please tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Allison. Yes, thank you so much for having me. This is perfect timing for families because you're definitely not alone. I think society has whipped this whole family photo thing into being a very performance driven activity, and people have all of these ideas about the pressure that it has and like how they're supposed to act and how it's supposed to look and all of these things. So I'm really passionate about simplifying all of that for families. I guess personally about me in my outside of work life, I'm a mom to two kids right now, ages 6 and 2. My husband and I have been married for 10 years. He's an entrepreneur too. We have a crazy Australian Shepherd keeps us on our toes. And yeah, we live in the woods. I love reading and baking and all of the simple things.
And just so everyone knows, we had a false start already because
Yeah.
first Leah's dog was barking and then my dogs were barking. And it was just classic mom, work, life,
Yeah.
all the things. Well, that's awesome. And I'm really excited for everyone to get to know you a little better because we've worked together and you're fantastic. So,
Thank you.
my biggest question personally is going to be around choosing outfits. But
Mhm.
before we get to that, I have a few other questions. Fall is my favorite time to get photos because I like to use them for Christmas cards and I love fall colors and I just love the idea of the picture being recent. Obviously, there's no bad time to get family pictures. I love seeing people's beach pictures when they send them to me, but I'm curious if you think fall is the ideal time of year or if there's actually another season that you think people should consider if they're just thinking about family pictures once a year.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great reasons why people love fall sessions. It's a prime season for, well, there's a few pros, so I'll lay those out. And then there are also great reasons to get throughout other seasons of the year, too. So, some of the benefits of fall are if you're wanting to do an outdoor session, timing is really the big key here because it's the sun is setting like prime time, not too late. So for kids with toddlers who are going to bed around 7 o'clock or so, to do a sunset session in the summertime is going to be really difficult. So fall timing wise, you get that start time of 4 or 5, maybe 6 o'clock, depending on the month. And that's just usually a better window for kids. For people who are really nervous about being in photos and want some more like natural activity or engagement, fall is also great because you can incorporate things like apple picking or, I don't know, like walking through the cornfield or whatever. It just feels like a very natural, like, activity that you can incorporate into your photos if that is something that you're nervous about. People also tend to really love the colors of fall, like you mentioned, like the warm textures, boots, pants, beanies, like lots of great options for layering. And the last thing that is like the best about fall is the temperature usually. Like it's not too cold where everybody's bundled up in heavy coats, but it's not so hot that everyone is sweating bullets during their shoot too. So if you get a session between like September and November, that's, I mean, there's a reason why that's the prime season, why people love that. But with all of that said, it's not the only season, and there are some really great reasons to do other times of the year too. For example, if your kids usually nap like in the 2 to 4 o'clock range, then planning a sunset shoot in November is going to be difficult because they're going to like you're going to have to start right in that window for a sunset shoot. And that's not going to work for you. So you might be better off doing like a morning home shoot in the spring or summer or something like that. If in the wardrobe realm, like if you really love the flowy dresses and pastel colors, again, spring, summer is a better fit for you. So there's just lots of things to consider. And fall is not the only, definitely not the only option. There are many great reasons to choose other times of year too.
Yeah, and you mentioned the sunset for fall.
hmm
I'm picking up that you like that time of day. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so lighting for outdoor sessions is best in the what we call golden hour. So it's like the 2 hours before the sun sets in the evening. So the closer you can get to a sunset, the better for just flattering, for variety in location, and just having the best light for your shoot. It's nice and glowy. So again, there are ways to work around that, but that's the ideal. And most photographers, if you're having an outdoor session, are going to try to push you towards that sunset time frame.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the orchard, and it completely brought back one of my favorite photos we've ever had taken of the girls. And it's so good that my parents wanted to have it painted into a
No.
portrait. And it was at Carter's Mountain. I want to say they were maybe 3 and 4. And they both had these little green apples in their hand. And I don't remember exactly what they were doing with the apples, but they just started cracking up. And so they're bent over with this really sincere laughter face. And they have these little apples in their hands. And it's so cute. And you're right. It was just that they were so little. 3 and 4 is hard to make them do what you wanted to do. And
Mhm.
they just played at the orchard, and we were picking them up to pick apples. And
Yeah,
that
sometimes a
one,
location like that can really instigate some natural family interaction, which kind of breaks the ice for everybody.
totally. And that one picture was just worth all of that. I remember being stressful to get them ready for. And that one picture made it all worth it.
Oh.
So, speaking of locations, we've talked a little bit about that, but I think that's another tricky spot is choosing where you're going to do your fall photos. So, we've done ours in a variety of places. I just mentioned the orchard. We've
Mhm.
done them throughout our neighborhood, like finding pretty views because there's some nice hills in our neighborhood. We've done them at UVA, which is a favorite spot for mine because, of course, I went to UVA. We've gone to a park. We've done them at a photographer's house who lived on a farm. I mean, I feel like we've done everything, but each year it's kind of like, where are we going to do the pictures? So I'd love to know if you have recommendations for those who aren't sure where they want their photos taken.
Yes, absolutely. I actually have a whole blog post about some of my favorite locations in the area, so I'm happy to send that to you. But um,
Absolutely. We can put it in the show notes.
yeah, so as far as location goes, like it's not, I wouldn't let that be a deterrent towards, I don't know where I want to shoot. So, like, and then you just let it fall. Like, that's not really your job. Like, I really encourage people to lean on your photographers. Like, just like I have my favorite locations that work really well for my style and I know really well, I'm familiar with them. Like, other photographers will have those preferences too. So you can lean on your photographer to help with that decision and like just give them the information about your preferences, your family, your vibe, and your photographer can help you piece in that location piece. So often I'll ask families about special places that they enjoy going, like where do you spend time normally together? And again, with some respect towards like season and time of day and things like that will change the location availability as well. But with all of those details in place, like that's part of my job is to help you find the best fit.
Right. Yeah, that's helpful.
Mhm.
And if families are thinking about doing pictures at home, which we actually did last year for the first time, do they need to have this perfect picturesque yard or garden, or do they need to really feel confident that they have a great background for pictures?
Oh gosh, no. This is another huge misconception that I hear from families all the time because sessions at home are really growing in popularity and they're my personal favorite. I love shooting at homes. There's so many amazing benefits to shooting at home, especially for families with young kids, but I've shot at home with teenagers and all ages. So you definitely The short answer is no, you definitely don't have to have a perfectly styled, large, picturesque, or even a perfectly clean home or yard to do your session there. I shoot lots of sessions entirely indoors if families don't have a yard at all. Sometimes we shoot in and out. It all depends on the space and the light and time of day and your home. And I often ask families to give me a little video walkthrough, especially if they're nervous about shooting in their home or they don't know if it's going to work. I'll just have them send me like a little walkthrough on any random day, like at around the time that we're thinking of for the shoot. And then I can get a vision for this space will work well, or we can shoot back here in the yard. And that kind of just makes everybody feel more comfortable. But yeah, you definitely do not have to have some like editorial home to shoot there. I shoot in all kinds of environments.
And what are some of the benefits of shooting at home? Because you started out by saying there's so many benefits of shooting
Hmm.
at home, and I'd love to know what you think
Yeah.
some of those are.
Yeah. So, home is the place where many of us feel most comfortable. So, especially for families, I don't work with professional models or people who are photographed all the time and are just super. We're people. We're just people, and we love our families. And your kids can get nervous if you put all this pressure around, like getting to a spot on time and getting the shoes just right and all of those things. And home just really relaxes all of that. I show up to a home and mom hasn't finished doing her makeup yet. Totally fine. We'll start with something like it just eases the pressure and stress around the whole environment a lot. I also feel like home is just so special and intimate to a family because it changes with the growth of the family as well. We all see how our homes change over time, and sometimes we move and we don't even live in that home anymore. So the home can become almost like a character in your session where you can have that extra piece of familiarity and like memory of attachment to the spaces in your home when they're in your photographs too.
So true. Do you find with families that you end up liking or that they end up liking the traditional pose pictures or the more candid, playful, like I mentioned, my daughters with the apples?
Mhm.
What kind of poses do you find end up being the most popular or that you enjoy shooting? And, or I guess maybe a better question would be, how do you approach it with the young families?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question because people want to look and feel candid, but what they don't realize is that that doesn't just happen. There's definitely posing that goes into making those candid moments unfold. So, posing to me feels like quote unquote posing feels very formal to me. And my style definitely isn't that. But I tend to use lots of games and conversation techniques and playfulness integrated within a pose to loosen it all up. Because to me, you start with the pose, but then the magic and all of the authenticity and the love spills out when it all falls apart. So I'm actually looking for and working to make that happen. Like I want it to get a little messy because that's when it feels more true. And that's what my clients end up falling in love with most too.
Yeah. Speaking of the game, that back to that one session at the orchard, the photographer brought the tickle monster gloves. So I don't know if you've ever seen that book.
Yeah, I do.
It's a
I do know that.
great book.
Yeah.
You know, it's the book and you got the gloves. And we had the book and gloves, but she brought her own set. And so she was also doing tickle monster with the kids so that we weren't focused on trying to make the kids relax and have fun.
Hmm.
And I don't remember if that's what kind of got the kids going in that picture, but that was really fun too because she was pretending to be the tickle monster and doing the photos. And that really
Hmm.
worked very well for the kids. And still
Yeah.
now, if her name comes up, they're like, oh, yeah,
Oh.
she's the one that does the tickle monster.
That's funny. It's yeah, parents, there's so many photos where the kids are great, they're laughing and engaged, but the parents are so concerned about what the kids are doing that their faces are like tense or strained. So, yeah, it's an interesting puzzle to try to get everybody loose in their own way, like to get everybody just relaxed and not concerned about what is this going to look like, what are it's again like the performance driven, just ironing all of that out so that you can actually just be together and enjoying each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like that's also the struggle with the dogs. So, which I want to ask about here. But when we had the dogs last year, the kids kept looking at the dogs to see if the dogs were looking at the camera. And it was like,
Mhm.
just ignore the dogs. You girls are good. Let
Yeah.
the photographer get the dog's
Yeah.
attention. But there were a lot of pictures where the kids were looking at the
Mhm.
dogs. So we've already talked about our dogs. You and I are both dog lovers. And we did include our dogs in our family pictures last year, but it was really the first time. And it was pretty easy to do because we did our pictures at home. And our girls are older now, so we were able to instruct them to stop looking at the dogs. And I had mentioned when you and I were chatting before we hit record that part of the reason I did that was when our previous dog, Bella, who you've met and taken a beautiful picture of, passed away. I ended up really regretting that I had never put her in family photos with our girls. And so I really wanted to make it happen. But this year, I'm probably not going to use the dogs. It's a lot to navigate the dogs. But I think this is a touchy point for people because usually if you have dogs, you love your dogs. And what are your thoughts about incorporating dogs or pets into family pictures and your thoughts on, is there a right age to do it? Just tell me your thoughts on the pets and the dogs.
Yes, I love when families bring their dogs. I think it's one of those natural relaxers, like an activity that I mentioned earlier, like families playing with their dog. It can also be a stressor, like you mentioned. So there are a couple tips that I have for bringing your dog and making sure that it's not like encompassing the whole experience trying to worry about the dog. So I agree that doing the session at home is probably one of the best ways to incorporate your dog. Just like I mentioned, it being a comfort zone for kids, it's the same for pets, in that when you take them out and about, they're going to get riled up and more rambunctious and harder to keep calm. So when you're at home, they have a little bit more freedom to just be calm with the whole thing, and you can put them away. Like you can put them in the backyard or kennel if they need to calm down or not be involved for a little bit. So home, again, with pets, great bonus. They have more flexibility there. If you want to bring your dogs along for a location shoot, bring treats if possible, and then bring a helper. So I always recommend my families bring like a grandparent or a friend who's really familiar with the dog, and that way that person can be your wrangler. And if the dog needs to go for a walk and we're going to do some photos without the dog for a little bit, that's fine. You don't have to be concerned all the time about what's the dog doing. You can let that person handle the whole pet situation, and you can just keep things calm.
I like that idea of having someone to help with the dogs because that's always been my holdup is I don't need the dogs in every picture because I
Right.
didn't want it to be all consuming. But then where am I going to put the dogs
Right.
when I'm done with? All right, let's dive into my very least favorite part about family pictures, and that is choosing the outfit for everyone. And I am the furthest from a stylist, and my kids definitely have their own unique styles, which are very different from each other, which is an added
Mhm.
complication.
Yeah.
So they don't always love the outfits I picked. This year we happened to be at Marshall's and they both said, "This is the outfit I want to wear." And I thought, forget it. I'm giving up. Great. It's fine. They don't match. They clash each other, but go with your bad selves. Generally speaking, I've never really bought clothes just for family photos. I even find that stressful. So what do you say when your clients are asking you about outfits, and what would just be your general advice when we're thinking about this?
Oh, goodness, yes. This is definitely the biggest pain point for families is what do I wear? How do I get everybody happy with what they're wearing and still coordinating? So I for my clients, I have a style guide that I give all of my clients, and it has some basic color palette ideas of how to match but not be super matchy, like super all wearing the same color or anything. And I have some basic do's and don'ts, staying away from big logos, bright neon colors, really uncomfortable shoes, anything like that. Super like matching outfits, things like that, I feel really date your photos. And so we want things to feel really timeless. So there's always these little tips. And actually, anybody can get this guide too. It's on my website. You can just sign up and get it to your email if you want that style guide to help with your family photos. But I also I offer myself as a second opinion to my clients so that they can like not feel like they have to make these decisions alone. So I say, they'll often lay out some options on a bed, take some pictures or FaceTime me and be like, which one is best? I don't know what to wear. And I can weigh in and help you decide. So that's how I handle it. But I think in general, a lot of the stress around what to wear for photos comes from people trying to dress the way they think that they should dress according to whatever they've seen online and what other families are wearing. And they think, well, the uniform for family photos is a mom in a flowy dress, and I'm not a flowy dress person, so this must not be for me, or I don't know what to wear. And at the end of the day, you just want to feel like the most vibrant version of yourself. And one of the ways that you can do that is just wearing clothes that you normally feel comfortable in and you feel great in. So I agree with you, Allison, that like you should not have to go out and buy new outfits for your family photos. If you want to and you want to feel like really extra fresh and get something that feels great and you're not feeling like anything in your closet does that, then go out and get something new. But hopefully it's something you'll wear again because you love it and it fits with your personal style. I guess in terms of other tips for the rest of the family, that's my big one for moms is wearing what feels like you. And mom always goes first. So mom should pick her outfit first because it's always the most difficult and then coordinate everybody around that. For dads, the biggest hurdle I have is that they're just trying to be too formal. So, especially for home shoots, we don't need you in a dress shirt and dress shoes and dress pants and all that if we're hanging out on the couch. Like, what do you feel good in? What you can wear a Henley shirt, a solid Henley, and some shorts, and that's great. It doesn't have to be super tight to the nines, like these days of tights and ties and all of those things. Like we can just let all that go because it never goes well, right? Nobody ever feels comfortable in that. So, and then kids, like you said, with yours and their own personal styles, like my oldest is the same way too. She definitely has her own opinions. And we've had our years where I've picked stuff out and then she's completely derailed and picked out something different. So, my biggest tip is if you really want them to coordinate, pull a couple options and be okay with any of the ones that she chooses or he chooses being okay. So, just narrow it down for them, pick 2 or 3 things that will work and coordinate with the rest of the family, and then let them decide from there.
And what if you have a child who really wants to do patterns? Do
Oh,
we
I
have
think
thoughts
patterns are
on that?
great. Patterns are great. I
Okay,
just
so
don't
you're not
you
anti-patterns, or you don't think it
no.
has to be solids?
Oh, actually, patterns are great. Patterns really break things up. You just don't want the whole family in patterns. You want 1 or 2 people in coordinating patterns, and it's okay if you have somebody in a stripe and somebody else in a like a light floral or something like that. It's fine. Like I think people have these like really strict again, like it has to be all solids. We have to wear collared shirts. We have to wear and like none of those things are true. It's all about like color palette and feel, texture, things like that.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
currently Ainsley says she's wearing this blue plaid skirt with this blue jacket. We'll see
Love
if it
it.
sticks.
Love it.
So that's really helpful, and it sounds like at the end of the day, we should all just relax a little bit on the outfit front. I like the idea of putting outfits together and maybe sending a picture to the photographer and seeing if they have feedback. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, because I mean, there definitely are things that are going to look better than other things. And there are outfits that are beautiful outfits, but that just might not work well for the location that you're choosing or something like that. So, having a baseline, and this is what I'm thinking, and send it to your photographer and have her weigh in, get some peace of mind around it. And that way, if there really is an issue, then you know. And if there's not, then you can feel good about it and just let their personality out.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect. So now let's talk about the kids who don't perform well under pressure, especially when they're told to smile and you get all the funky looking smiles that don't look anything like their real smile.
Yeah.
Luckily, I haven't had this issue with my girls, but I am a little worried this year because now Addison, just because she's a little older and a little more self conscious, that sometimes now, even the first day of school pictures, I thought, that's weird. That's not your natural smile, and I had to make her
Mhm.
laugh to get it. And so I'm curious how you help families navigate either the child who ends up looking not like themselves or the child who's just generally resistant to this whole process of
Mhm.
having a photographer who's probably someone they don't know very well direct them to do things.
Yes. Okay. This is a huge one that I have lots of thoughts about, but I mean, kids are unpredictable. They're just unpredictable. And I know parents worry about this often, but I like to remind people that if we are walking away from this performance driven approach and we really want those natural smiles, we want the personality and the connection and the playfulness, all those things that we love about our kids. Like you said, I had to make her laugh to get her smile. Well, that's great. That's what we want the photo shoot to be full of, them actually enjoying themselves and having fun. And we have to work through the initial like conception of this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And kids have that, this performance driven, here's how I'm supposed to smile. And it's never their real smile because they're acting. But when we can take away the pressure, and this is your photographer's job, by the way, this isn't the parent's job, but like to get everyone into being themselves and to having fun and playing together as a family. That's the key to loosening the whole thing up. And this is another reason why I'm a huge advocate of full length sessions instead of mini sessions. A lot of photographers will offer mini sessions in the fall, and that shortened time frame, if your kids, especially if your kids are more shy or nervous about doing photos or anything like that, the shortened time frame has built-in pressure naturally. So when you have more fluidity in the time frame, my regular sessions are between an hour and a half, that's when you actually have room to play in the leaves or go exploring or have races. If the kids are feeling like pent up a little bit, okay, go run to the tree and back, and take a snack break if they're really little and need all of those things. They're not wasting time in your session, but it's actually a really strategic way to reformat the experience and kind of chip away at that fear and of being photographed or fear of performing, and start to actually just celebrate who you are as a family together, which is really the heart of what we want from the photos in the first place, right?
Totally. I also like the hour sessions for that
Mm-hmm.
exact reason, because if something's not going well, it gives us
Yeah.
time to regroup. And then if we have some extra time at the end, like last year, my husband got a headshot done. Like it was like, okay, we have a little extra time.
There's extra
And
time.
he was like, I
Yeah.
haven't had a headshot in a long time. So he got a really nice headshot. It was outside, it was pretty, but, and so I could not agree more about giving yourself the time. We've only done one mini session. It was fine, but I
Mhm.
do having less pressure, and I'm fine if we end in 45 minutes. Like if
Yeah.
we get the job done and the kids are cooperating, it's okay, great, but we didn't have to stress about it.
Yeah. There's also more room to do breakdowns, like different combinations of like mom with both kids or mom with just one
Yes.
kid and individual, like all of those little breakdowns there's room for all of that, which means when you're not being photographed, go play. Go if when you're
Yes.
outside or if you're at home, go in your room, take a break. All of that, there's just this room. And that's a theme that I feel like I'm saying over and over again is like space, breathe. This doesn't have to be a huge like come on, smile, like military type approach to things, which I don't know, back in when I was a kid, it was small studios, 15-minute shoots, and you'd go in and and sit, and it was like, this is what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to stand. And yeah, it's just there. I think we can break through all of that and find a lot more freedom with what we're able to get. The results echo that.
Totally. And
Mhm.
last year, also, Ainsley, who's my introvert, was really feeling herself in these photos. She was very comfortable in her outfit. She was wearing her favorite sweater, which still is her favorite sweater to this day. I'm sure she'd wear it again if I'd let her. And she was just feeling so good. And so she was very posy. And the photographer was like, oh, I see you really want to have your picture taken. And so she did this whole side thing with her. And it made me so happy because she's my more
Yeah.
reserved child. And she was just in it that day, like posing. And some of
Yes.
the pictures were so cute. She wanted to sit on this chair and cross her leg. But so having that extra time was super helpful because I didn't care that they did this side tangent. Because I was like, all right, great.
Mhm.
She's in a good mood. She can go do her
Right.
little side posing. And she loved the
Yeah.
pictures when they came back.
Yeah, and what confidence that gives kids too when they see the reflection of that in the photos. And by the way, this echoes into moms and dads with their kids when they see, "Ah, look how my kids are looking at me." That feels good. And you want to see, like, when you feel good in an outfit, when you see those photos that feel like you, that's the whole point.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the husbands because sometimes, and maybe this is just me bringing my own baggage into the conversation, but sometimes the husbands are distracted and they're not as interested, and it feels like it's more of a job they're showing up for. And I think sometimes they're less natural in the playful photo sessions. So tell me a little bit more about how you approach the fathers or husbands who
Mhm.
might be a little less enthusiastic.
Okay. Well, I feel like most dads are going to be more resistant. Often this is the case. And it's usually because they just don't get it the same way that the moms who are booking with me get what's going on. And I don't mean that as an insult for dads, men at all. I just mean that if the mom is usually the one seeking out the photographer. She wants these emotional images that reflect the family connection and all of those things. And often moms are the family historians. So they're the ones behind the camera. And that's not the case as much for dads. Like they see themselves playing with their kids in their candid photos and things like that. So I think that when you're going about booking a photographer, like from the beginning of the experience, sharing in that as a couple from the beginning can be really helpful. So before you hire anyone, talking about why you want these images, why they're important to you, and come to an agreement about that. And then choose a photographer together. So look at the photos, look at the portfolio of work, and make sure that he looks at that and sees, like, reads the prep materials that your photographer gives about. If you just expect him to show up to the session and know what's going on, and he's not going to understand and he's going to be resistant. That's expected. So I think just really allowing them to be part of the process, they're going to see, oh, this photographer isn't going to expect me to be super smiling at the camera or cheesing or whatever. If you hire a documentary photographer, they're going to be like, oh, great, I can hang out in my backyard and it's I just play with my kids. I can do that. It depends. It all depends on the experience from the beginning and making sure you're just aligned with the why and the what is about to happen.
Totally. Yeah, so I had 2 bumpy years with my husband where I felt he just was not present at all, and the second it was 2 years in a row, and the first year I was kinda like, "Oh, it doesn't he doesn't seem as into this as he has in previous years," and then that second year, he was very distracted on his phone, like, between we were moving locations, to the point where I was thinking, "This is uncomfortable, like, I feel
Mm.
badly for the photographer," and then the photographer did bring it up, "What's up with him?" Because she knows him, and
Yeah.
from doing pictures. And she pulled me aside because he was so distracted that we were able to have a whole side conversation about it without him even noticing. And she kind of said what you said, like, you really need to talk to him about how important it is. And she told me the story about this other family. And she said, you want to talk to him about it and prep him. But I was so annoyed by the time we
Yeah.
left that I was like, listen, we're never doing that again. And he was like, what? Was shocked.
Yeah.
And he denied that he wasn't. He said, I was fine. And I was like,
Mm.
no, it didn't feel fine. It didn't feel like
Mhm.
you were in it. And still to this day, those are my least favorite pictures because when I see that now, I think, well, that was the day I was annoyed with him because
Mhm.
he wasn't present. I felt annoyed. So then I felt like I wasn't sincere in the pictures. And so when I walked away, I said, I'm just not going to do it again. That didn't feel good to me. I'm not going to love that photo like I've loved previous photos.
Mhm.
And then he opened up how much he values the family
Mm.
photos and that he really well, of course we're going to do the family photos. And so my thing was you either show up when we agree on a date, you show up and you're fully present and you're not on your phone and you're not doing the things so that we can actually have fun and love the photos, or I'm not doing it. So each
Yeah.
year, that was a handful of years ago, I say, do you really want to do the photos? And he says,
Mhm.
yes, I want to do the photos. And he's been much better. So
Yes.
I probably didn't go about it in the best way and that I was very annoyed when I brought it up. But I do think getting that commitment to do you value this? If you value it, you need to be
Mhm.
present and participate. And it turns out he loves the family photos. So he just
Yeah.
was not, he's busy. And so in his
Mhm.
mind, it was like, whatever, I'll pose when
Mhm.
she tells me to pose, which he was, but I
Mhm.
don't know, it almost sent me over the edge. But then it's made all the pictures better because he's actually lets his enjoyment show.
Yeah, well, I mean, you learned from that, and he did too, it sounds like, and it's just like a lot of things, setting an intention before you go into something makes a huge difference, and the the emotion, the stress, whatever is happening, you're so right. It's baked in to the photos. If you are on fire, mad at your kids going out the door to get to a session, like you're going to be feeling that through the session and every time you look back at those photos. So that's why I'm just such an advocate of finding this experience to make it as easy and enjoyable as possible because everything that happens throughout the session itself, before, like on the way there and after, like it's baked in. It really is. And you can feel the tension and emotion that comes from it in your
And when
photos
you look
afterwards
at
too.
it, that's what
Yeah.
comes back. Like, when I look
Yeah.
at that one session, I've loved all of our family photos, but that one
Yeah.
thing I think, "Oh, that's the day I was so annoyed."
Yeah. Funny in regards to phones too. I mean, I've had that experience before too with dads earlier on in my career, and that it was just like a catalyst for distraction. And I've also found that it can be a really distracting prop in every family photo if it's just sticking out of a back pocket. It's like unintentionally there, even if you're not using it, but it's like on your person. So I've spent many an hour editing phones out of pockets
Oh
to be
gosh.
like, so if we're getting started in a session and I notice there's a phone in somebody's pocket, I immediately will ask them, be like, oh, can we just stash that in the bag over there? And it's just a non-issue for the rest of the session because not accessible. This is not a part of this event right now.
I think that's a good rule of
Mhm.
thumb, and even last year, the photographer asked me to take off my Apple Watch, which I thought, "Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, same sort of thing. I wear it all the time."
Yeah.
But she was like, "I don't really think you want that in your photo." I was like, "Of course, it's like having my cell phone." And I just
Yes.
hadn't really thought about it. And so I do think that's another kind of good rule of thumb would
Mhm.
be to just not even have the phones there or
Yeah.
the Apple Watch
It
or
can be
yeah.
distracting, especially if your texts are coming up on it, or even sometimes if you just turn your wrist, the numbers will show up or something
Yes.
and highlight, and that's in your photos and it's very distracting. So sometimes people are worried about a watch tan or something if by
Yeah.
taking off their watches, but a watch tan is way easier to edit out than a giant Apple Watch on your wrist.
Yes. I know
Yeah.
she said, like, the first picture she took, she said, "All I see is that watch. You got" Okay. She was
Yes.
probably thinking of the editing that would be
Yes.
coming.
It's a good tip.
Alright, well, now that I've totally threw my husband under the bus, I'm curious how if you give people pep talks when they aren't feeling comfortable or you can tell you show up for that session and you can tell everyone's on edge.
Mhm.
They had trouble getting the kids dressed. What do
Mhm.
you say to that group? Because now once we've gone south, we're already south. How do you kinda bring everyone back to
Mhm.
save those sessions?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it all. I've seen the roller coaster of it starts low and we come back out of it. I've seen hit a low in the middle of a session and we got to come back out of it. I've seen all of that. But when I can tell there's tension coming into a shoot, and usually with every session, I begin because you never know, even if people aren't showing it on their faces or in their bodies, like you never know what's happened in the day before you get there. So I always set up with my families before we get started, like with a pep talk of here we are together, where we've set this time aside to just enjoy this beautiful night and your home and being together. And all that's important right now is you guys being together. That's the only thing that matters. So you just leave the rest to me, and if we need to take breaks, we will. And we're going to have a really great night tonight. How does that sound? And that just sort of resets people into, okay, like we can take a deep breath and circle back into whatever we saw this being to begin with. It's really easy to go down this path of trying to be on performance. And I just try to really recenter people on why they're doing it and the connection that is most important. And I don't photograph celebrities, I don't photograph professional models or anything. So I still see just such incredible beauty in every single mom and every single family that I engage with. So sometimes it's hard to see that within your own circles because you're just so in the thick of it. And that's what I really feel like part of my job is reflecting what I see from an outside perspective back to you. And we can be so self conscious. We can be just nervous about being photographed, even if you do it every year. So, just hiring someone who is really experienced in working with families in particular. Wedding photographers are a completely different skill set. Like, wedding photography is a really different skill set than working with family photography or branding photography or anything like that. So, if you're nervous, especially about your family dynamic or shooting in a home or just being flattered in the photos or anything like that, just being careful about who you're hiring and feeling confident with them and that they're going to support you and help to take care of that so that you can just be present and enjoy the experience.
Yeah, I think this is where I'll give a shout out to moms. There's so many things where I think you become better at your job after you become a mom,
Mhm.
depending on what your job is. But I would put family photography, I'm assuming, in that same spot
Mhm.
because I find the photographers who are moms work best with my family because I think
Mhm.
they get it. Like they
Mhm.
get that we're all in the thick of it. They're either in the thick of it or they've been there and it's okay, I see you. We're good.
Yeah,
And
we get
so
it.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I could see you do you think you became a better photographer after becoming a mom?
Oh, absolutely. I was a family photographer before I was a mom, but through the growth of my own family, it has opened my heart and mind and vision as a photographer and all of those things so dramatically to just have such grace for every family that I engage with.
Yeah, I always think of when I was delivering Ainsley, I had the most lovely nurse. I cannot remember her name. I do remember the names of the nurses with Addison, but she was a fairly new mom. And she was so thoughtful, and I was carrying in all my trauma from my first delivery, and she just went above and beyond. And at one point, I turned to her and said, "Do you think you're a different nurse now that you've recently delivered your baby than you were as a labor and delivery nurse before?"
Mhm.
And she said, "Oh my gosh, I couldn't be more different." She said, "I like
Mhm.
to think I was a good nurse before." She said, "I think I was, but my compassion
Mhm.
for you and for every other woman is so different now that I delivered my baby, whatever it was, 6 or 8 months ago." And she
Yeah.
said, "It's completely changed how I approach my work." And
Yeah.
so I think about that conversation a lot because I think that's true for a lot of moms when you're engaging with other moms or children that you change when you become a mom, and it's one of the benefits, I think, for a lot of us.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. I couldn't agree more.
Well, this has all been really helpful, and I appreciate all the great advice, and I know that you obviously take family photos all year round. I'm
Mhm.
curious if you have a favorite shot or 2 that you've taken of a family and that every time you see it, you just think, "Oh, that's it. We nailed it."
Oh, I don't have a favorite shot. It's impossible. I've been doing this for over 10 years and it's just impossible to have favorites. Everyone is so different, but I will say that people have come to me over the years with so many different stories into coming into their sessions, like cancer diagnoses and battles and the loss of family members, infertility, adoption, all kinds of things that you come into something that is family photos usually perceived as a really joyous celebration, but people have history and they have just burdens on their hearts, and so whenever people come to me with those kind of stories and I can photograph the growth of their families like through those events in their lives, like those are the sessions that really stick out to me and really remind me about what an honor it is and the real root of the value of family photography. Those are the sessions that always stick out to me the most.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. Leah, thank you so much for joining me on here today. Any final tips or things that we should keep in mind as we schedule these fall family photo sessions?
A book early. If you have a photographer who you really love or you definitely want to connect with or get a session with, especially in the fall, try to reach out as soon as you know that is on your heart and that's something that you want, because like we talked about at the beginning, fall is the most high demand season for a reason. Just getting it on the calendar early will give you a lot more flexibility with your time and date and all of those things so that it's really ideal for your family.
I have screwed that up many times and ended up with the late
Yeah.
November
Yeah.
session, sometimes very cold.
I know. I'll have families reach out to me at the beginning of December. Do you have anything before Christmas? And it's maybe, but we're not going to get it back before Christmas gifts. We're just not. So,
New Year's
um,
pictures.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, thanks again for coming on today. Can you tell everyone how they can find you?
Yes, my website is lofirefly.com. And then I'm most active on Instagram, and my handle is fireflyphoto_Leah, Leah.
All right, perfect. We will link to that in the show notes. And thanks again. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to How Long Till Bedtime. To learn how we can work together to improve your child's sleep, please visit sleepandwellnesscoach.com.